Have you ever woken up with that strange, almost mystical feeling, as if the very moment you're living right now, this breath, this smell of coffee, this thought that just crossed your mind, has all happened before? Not déjà vu, but something more profound, like you're watching a perfect, detailed, yet slightly worn copy of a film you've already seen. And what if I told you that our entire civilization, with all its great discoveries, crazy wars, cat memes, and plans for Mars, isn't a unique, first-time, one-of-a-kind event, but merely another incredibly precise rerun? What if we're all just actors in a gigantic cosmic play, performed over and over again in the endless cycles of the universe? Before we dive into this incredible story, which might just put you to sleep along the way, don't forget to subscribe and hit that like button. And please, tell us in the comments what city and time zone you're watching our lectures from. We'd be really interested to know. So get comfortable, relax, close your eyes, and let's find out. Has this all happened before? Imagine this. It's 1898. In a New York printing house, Morgan Robertson's novel, chillingly titled Futility or the Wreck of the Titan, is released. The book tells of an unimaginably huge, unsinkable ship named the Titan, which, on its very first voyage, strikes an iceberg in the icy waters of the North Atlantic and sinks, taking 2/3 of its passengers with it due to a shortage of lifeboats. Chilling, right? 14 years later, in 1912, the real Titanic repeats the fate of its literary twin. The same size, the same unsinkability, the same tragedy, the same North Atlantic Ocean, the same catastrophic shortage of lifeboats. From 88,000 tons to 66,000, a difference of only 22,000 tons. Not too much of a difference for such a prophecy. Just think. It's as if someone wrote the script first, and then brought it to life, down to the most chilling, minute details. Just a coincidence, you say? A cruel twist of fate? Oh, sure. Statistics, selective perception, the human tendency to find patterns where none exist. Physicists would scoff and say, correlation doesn't imply causation, buddy. But what if the universe itself sometimes peaks at its own draft? What if these coincidences aren't random static in the ether, but faint yet distinct echoes of something that has already happened? A whisper from the void, piercing through the fabric of reality. You know, it's like that feeling of déjà vu. You're sitting somewhere, talking, drinking coffee, and suddenly, boom. That strange, inexplicable sensation that you've been here before, experienced this exact moment, word for word, every gesture, every breath, as if you were given a fleeting glimpse into a film reel that's already been shot. Your brain, of course, tries to rationalize it. Oh, it's just fatigue, misprocessed information. But what if it's not? What if, for a fraction of a second, your brain synchronized with something larger? With an echo of a moment already lived, recorded somewhere in the depths of existence? Or here's another one. How many times have you thought of someone, and the next second they call? Listen, it's not just our grandmothers who tell these stories. Or you look at the clock, and it's 22 past 22, or 11 past 11. Once, twice, a coincidence, 10 times. Now it's interesting. 100? 1,000? When these glitches in the matrix start repeating suspiciously often, you can't help but wonder, is someone playing cat and mouse with us? Okay, these are minor things, everyday tricks of our subconscious, I agree. But what if these tricks also manifest on a cosmic level? On a level where time isn't measured in hours and minutes, but in billions of years and light years. Imagine, you gaze into the depths of space, and telescopes show you two galaxies, two enormous star systems, billions of light years apart. And they're almost identical, like two twins, born in different eras, but cast from the same mold. One is old, burned out. The other is young, brimming with energy. Their shape, their spiral arms, even the distribution of dark matter within them, everything as if from a single cosmic stencil. Scientists, of course, would immediately say, well, that's just general principles of formation. The laws of physics are universal, and similar initial conditions lead to similar results. And that's logical. But what if there are too many similar results? What if we're seeing not just similar, but nearly identical structures? Take, for example, the cosmic microwave background, the echo of the Big Bang, the oldest radiation in the universe. It should, theoretically, be absolutely random, uniform. But scientists find anomalies within it. Massive cold spots, gigantic voids that don't fit the standard model. Perhaps all these strange coincidences, from the prophetic novel about the Titanic to nearly identical galaxies and the fine-tuning of constants, aren't chaotic noise in the endless cosmos. Perhaps it's that very whisper from the void. Not a shout, not thunder, but a quiet, persistent reminder that this song has already played. And we are listeners in yet another, not quite perfect repetition of the great cosmic symphony. Imagine the humid air of the Yucatan, sometime around 950 AD. The sun beats down mercilessly, scorching the jungle green. But in the shadow of the Palenque temple complex, a cool mysticism prevails. You stand before giant steps leading to the sky, and on the walls, covered with intricate reliefs, shadows dance. Beside you is a Mayan priest. His face is painted with intricate patterns, and his gaze is fixed somewhere beyond the horizon, where the first constellation is about to appear. He raises his hand, sweeps it over the majestic carvings, and softly, as if fearing to scare away a secret, begins his story of the long count, about how time isn't a straight road, but an endless spiral where everything returns, repeats, like an echo in a vast forgotten cave. Cycles after cycles, eras after eras. And you're thinking, well, those are just myths. Ancient people didn't know physics or astronomy like we do. They're beautiful legends, nothing more. But here, my friend, is where it gets interesting. Because if you look closely, these mere legends suspiciously accurately describe what modern scientists are only just beginning to whisper about. Ancient civilizations, separated by thousands of miles and hundreds of years, suddenly turn out to be remarkably unified in one striking idea. Our universe isn't a one-time act, but an endless play on repeat, over and over again. You know, it's like when you buy a new phone. At first, it's perfect, super fast, everything's great. But then, after a couple of years, it starts lagging, the battery dies faster, and some apps just don't run anymore. What do? You buy a new model. And it's as if the ancients were saying that our universe is like that same phone, which after long use reboots and starts all over again. Let's take the meter Maya. Their calendar isn't just a count of days, it's an entire cosmic philosophy. Not just one calendar, but a whole matryoshka doll of cycles, from short ones, like 52 years, to grand great cycles, each lasting over 5,000 years. And each such cycle ended, giving way to a new one. They didn't see the end of the world as we understand it, but rather the end of one cosmic act and the beginning of the next. Imagine, for them, time wasn't a river flowing forward, but a giant wheel that turns, bringing the same seasons, the same stars, the same stories, over and over again. It's like déjà vu, but not just for you personally, but for the entire galaxy. Now let's move west to the majestic Nile, ancient Egypt. If you think they only cared about mummies and pyramids, you'd be greatly mistaken. They had their concept of zeptepi, the first time. This wasn't just a moment of creation, but rather a mythical epoch that, according to their beliefs, constantly repeated itself. The cycle of Ra, the sun god, his daily journey across the sky, his battle against chaos, and his triumphant return, it's all a metaphor for the eternal cosmic cycle. Every day is a small universe that is born, lives, and dies, only to be resurrected the next morning. Like your morning cup of coffee, seemingly new, but the recipe's the same. But perhaps this idea shines most brightly in the East. In Indian philosophy, the concept of cyclicity reaches mind-boggling scales. There aren't just cycles, there are yugas, epochs that succeed one another, leading to a gradual decline, and then to complete destruction and new creation. And these yugas, in turn, assemble into mahayugas, great epochs, which combine into kalpas, the days of Brahma. One such day of Brahma is 4,320,000,000 Earth years. 4,320,000,000. You say our physicists are only just scratching their heads about repetitions? Well, Hindu sages thousands of years ago described a grandiose dance of creation and destruction, where the universe doesn't just live, but breathes, being born and dying again and again. It's as if you wake up, go to work, come home, fall asleep, and then it all starts over. Only the scale. Well, you get the idea. Listen, if these ancient civilizations, without our supercomputers and telescopes, described the endless cycles of the universe so detailedly and independently of each other, maybe it's not just a coincidence. Perhaps they're not myths, but vague memories. You know, like flashbacks that break through from the subconscious? Or were they intuitive insights, a kind of cosmic déjà vu, when the most sensitive minds of that era simply felt the pulse of a repeating reality? We're used to thinking of the past as something long gone and unique. But what if ancient scrolls, symbols carved in stone, Vedic hymns, aren't just stories about gods, but encrypted messages from the past, or even crazier, from our own future, which was already our past? Think about it. Maybe our entire civilization, with all its achievements and mistakes, has already played out this hand. And these ancient insights are merely echoes of ancient or future or already past cycles. Like a crumpled page, fallen from a vast cosmic book that the universe rereads over and over again. Remember playing on your Nintendo or Sega as a kid? Sometimes, when the game glitched, the screen would freeze, and then the image would repeat. Well, a similar glitch sometimes occurs in our universe, only it's noticed not by gamers, but by physicists, and it makes them scratch their heads in bewilderment. Imagine this: late 19th, early 20th century. Physics is triumphant. It seems all laws have been discovered. Newton's mechanics describe planetary motion. Maxwell's electromagnetism explains light. Just a few minor details to finalize, a couple of screws to tighten, and that's it. Physicists could retire peacefully. And then, bang, do you hear that screech? Suddenly, scientists start stumbling upon oddities, like with the famous ultraviolet catastrophe. Classical physics predicted that hot objects should emit an infinite amount of energy in the ultraviolet spectrum. Infinite. It would be like your toaster incinerating your entire kitchen, and then the Earth. Clearly, something was wrong. It was such a blatant, glaring error in calculations that physicists essentially watched their neat, beautiful picture of the world begin to unravel. And you're probably sitting there thinking, what nonsense? What does this have to do with repetitions? It's just a new phase of science, new discoveries. And I hear those voices. Physicists are like, hey, hold on, we're dealing with serious stuff here. No cosmic déjà vu. We've got the Big Bang, expansion, dark energy, black holes, and you're talking about copies. But you know what's strangest? Some of their own equations, their own deep mathematically precise theories, they very suspiciously hint at the possibility of repetitions. As if the matrix of reality itself sometimes throws up a glitch that doesn't just look like a bug, but like a clue. Imagine this metaphor. You have a deck of 52 cards. You shuffle it again, over and over. How many times do you need to shuffle that deck for its order to suddenly return to its original state? Many, many times. But if you shuffle it an infinite number of times, sooner or later, it will return to its initial state, or very close to it. This is exactly what Mincham, Poincaré recurrence theorem Hunan tells us. Complicated name, right? But its essence is this. If you have a closed system with a finite number of particles and a finite volume, like our universe, at least its observable part, then given enough time, these particles will inevitably return to a state very close to their initial one. Not in a billion years, not in a trillion, but in an extremely long time. A time that makes even the most fearless cosmologists tremble in horror. It's like an endless dance of atoms. Each atom moves, collides, changes position, and after unimaginable mind-boggling eons, they could all align almost exactly as they are right now. Now imagine this on the scale of the universe. If all the elementary particles that make up you, me, Earth, stars, and galaxies someday find themselves in the exact same positions and with the exact same impulses, what does that mean? It means our entire history. Every word you speak, every thought you think, every event will unfold again. As if someone is pressing the replay button on an old VCR. Or as if the universe is a massive mechanism that simply can't invent an infinite number of unique states. It's finite. And if something is finite and has enough time, it inevitably starts repeating itself. Physicists who dare to speak of this aren't just throwing their formulas to the wind. They see hints in the most fundamental laws. They see how certain values of fundamental constants, the force of gravity, the speed of light, the mass of an electron, are astonishingly precisely tuned for life to emerge. This is what's known as the fine-tuning of the universe. Someone will say, coincidence. Others, proof of a creator. And someone, the boldest of all, will whisper, what if it's not coincidence, and not a creator, but simply a successful, yet another copy that finally worked? These aren't just idle speculations over coffee. This is a cornerstone upon which some theories of cosmic cycles are built. They say, wait, what if these glitches in our equations, these too perfect coincidences, aren't errors, but clues? Clues that our reality is merely part of a much grander, yet cyclical repetition? And then everything gets even crazier. If physics, the most rigorous and precise instrument of knowledge, starts whispering about repetitions, then perhaps we really should listen and prepare for our minds to be blown. Because this isn't philosophy anymore, it's mathematics. And mathematics, a stubborn thing, sometimes presents such puzzles that they make your head spin. A June morning in 1908, Siberia. An unbearable light suddenly tore through the pre-dawn silence above the Podkamanaya Tunguska River. A few seconds of eerie quiet, and then an impact. A terrifying, deafening impact that flattened 80 million trees, spreading them over an area of 2,000 square kilometers. The sound of the explosion traveled for thousands of kilometers, and seismographs worldwide registered it, as if Earth had coughed from an invisible cosmic punch. Impressive, right? Frightening. Now imagine something similar, but on the scale of the entire, absolutely entire universe. Forget about that single, one-of-a-kind Big Bang they told you about in school. Forget that our universe was born just once, and has been expanding ever since, inexorably moving toward its cold and lonely end. What if it's not the finale, not a fresh start, but merely one act in an endless cosmic play? Imagine the universe is a giant accordion. It stretches, expands, sings its incredible melody, reaches a peak, and then begins to contract, slowly, inexorably, reaches an unimaginable point of singularity, and a new breath. This is what physicists call the cyclic model of the universe, an eternal breath. The Big Bang is its inhale. The Big Crunch, as it's called, is its exhale. And so it goes, without end. An eternal dance of birth and death, expansion and contraction. Listen, I know what you're thinking. That's pure philosophy, fairy tales. Where's the scientific proof? And you're not alone. Until recently, many physicists would also roll their eyes. But then some equations emerged, observations, and bold hypotheses. And it turned out that the idea of a cyclic universe, one that expands and then contracts, isn't so crazy after all, from a mathematical and physical standpoint. It even solves some problems that the standard Big Bang model faces. For example, where did the initial conditions for our cosmos come from? If the universe is an eternal dancer, then these initial conditions are simply the finale of the previous dance. Brilliant, right? But there's one nuance, one very important, fundamental nuance. It's not an absolutely perfect copy. Imagine your favorite movie being played over and over, endlessly. Only each time, say, the main character has a slightly different dye color, or he delivers a line with a subtle, barely perceptible change in intonation. Maybe one day he'll accidentally trip. These tiny glitches, these minor variations, accumulate. Each cycle, almost identical, but not quite. Like fingerprints, seemingly yours, but each time just a little different. Or like two snowflakes. From a distance they seem identical, but upon closer inspection, they're unique. So, according to this hypothesis, our universe isn't the first and not the last Big Bang. It's just one of billions of rehearsals. One of countless cosmic performances where the script is generally the same, but the details, the small brushstrokes, are slightly different each time. You are living in one of these rehearsals, in one of the versions. That's the story. And if this is true, if our world is just another take, then the most interesting thing is to understand how similar it is to the previous ones, and what sets it apart from all those that came before. Ready to find out how the universe manages to copy itself while still leaving these differences? Hold tight, we're just getting started. Listen, have you ever wondered how the first truly accurate, repeatedly reproducible copy came into existence? No, not a photograph or a Xerox, but something far more elegant and ancient. Let's transport ourselves to France, to Paris, in the distant 1801. Imagine a factory floor, the clatter of machinery, the smell of oil and dust. And there, amidst that noise, Joseph-Marie Jacquard presents his brilliant invention, a loom that no longer requires a dozen master weavers to create complex patterns. A single punch card, like a cosmic information carrier, programmed the complex design. 1,000,000 identical patterns, perfect repetitions, from a single instruction. Can you imagine how revolutionary that was? Just changing a card, and you'd have a different, yet equally perfectly repeating ornament. It was the prototype of what we now call digital code, software. Now let's ask ourselves, what if our universe has its own Jacquard, its own punch cards, its own instructions for repetition? How is that even possible? Our brains, accustomed to the uniqueness of every grain of sand, every snowflake, resist this. Physicists are like, oh, are you suggesting the universe is a giant Xerox machine? And I answer, yes, exactly, but far more sophisticated than any machine in your office. You know, one of the most exciting ideas of modernity is the concept of the informational nature of reality. Some scientists, including the legendary Stephen Hawking himself, have suggested that the fundamental essence of our universe isn't matter and energy themselves, but the information that describes them. Imagine our entire reality is a vast, incredibly complex file. Billions of gigabytes, trillions of terabytes. Essentially, it's a giant instruction manual. And if the universe is information, then it can be copied, rewritten, relaunched, like a digital record, or like loading an old save file in your favorite computer game. Here, quantum physics takes the stage, and that's when the real song and dance begins. Have you heard about some quantum entanglement? It's when two particles, no matter where they are linked in such a way that measuring one instantly affects the other. It's as if they have an invisible thread connecting them, or, if you will, a single informational channel. And what if the entire universe is one giant entangled system? A single organism, connected at a fundamental level. Then perhaps the information about its state, about every atom, every galaxy, every breath you take, doesn't disappear without a trace. Just as quantum mechanics posits that information cannot be completely destroyed, hello, black hole paradox, so too might the information about an entire universe be encoded somewhere. It simply awaits its moment to be unpacked anew. Another bold hypothesis that makes many scratch their heads is the holographic principle. Imagine that our entire three-dimensional reality is, in essence, just a detailed projection, a hologram encoded on some two-dimensional surface, like a screen or a film strip. Like in old video stores, the entire depth of a film contained on a thin strip of tape. If that's the case, then rebooting the universe doesn't seem so fantastical after all. It's enough to play that holographic recording again. Hit play. And here we are again. But how does this happen in practice? Here, the ideas of an unsettling universe come into play, where the Big Bang isn't the beginning of everything, but merely another phase of an endless cycle. Our universe doesn't expand forever. Instead, it eventually begins to contract, reaching a critical point, the Big Crunch. And instead of vanishing into oblivion, it bounces back. The Big Bounce. Like a ball hitting the floor. Again and again, each bounce gives birth to a new universe. And here's the most interesting part. What if, during this bounce, some part of the information, that universal Jacquard code, is somehow transferred? Not entirely, perhaps not 100% perfectly, but with enough precision to reproduce the same laws of physics, the same fundamental constants, and ultimately the same structures, the same planets, the same civilizations. Remember how, as a kid, you'd draw something, and then try to draw the exact same thing next to it? It always turned out a little different, but still recognizable. Well, the universe might be doing something similar. Large-scale cosmic drawing on a colossal cosmic canvas. From our small personal déjà vu to a cosmic déjà vu. What if that feeling of "I've been here before" isn't just a glitch in your brain? What if it's the whisper of the universe itself, trying to tell you, "Hello, we're here again, you're here again"? Imagine your favorite song, your first kiss, your last argument with your best friend, your breakfast tomorrow. All of this has already happened. You know, it's as if your life isn't a unique one-off performance, but a series of endless rehearsals. Each time the curtain rises, the actors come onto the stage, deliver their lines, play their roles, and you, in this play, are the main star. And each time, you live out your script, over and over again. Well, that's a bit much, some of you might say. My life is unique. My decisions are my own. And I understand your reaction. We're used to thinking of ourselves as originals, right? As artists painting our canvas for the very first time. But what if we're highly talented transcribers? Or even cooler, actors who live their roles so genuinely each time that they forget about previous takes? Think about this. If the universe truly reboots endlessly, and each cycle is incredibly similar to the last, then everything within it must also repeat. It's like putting on an old vinyl record. The needle drops into the same groove again, and the melody plays. The exact same one. With the same pause, the same false note, the same sudden silence. You wake up, drink coffee, open your phone, read the news, sigh. All of it has happened before. This isn't the same as predicting the future. No, it's more like a memory. Only here's the paradox. You don't remember that it's already happened. Your memory, it's also part of this cycle, you see? It also gets erased and rewritten along with everything else. We're like fish in an aquarium who forget about their four walls every day, yet swim the same route every day. Our quantum states, our thoughts, our minutest atomic oscillations. If the universe repeats, then all these complex interconnections repeat too. It's like a gigantic cosmic player that constantly presses the repeat button. And in that case, your happiest moment? It's already happened. Your saddest? That too. Your first love? Yes, that too. Do you feel the goosebumps? This isn't just a theory. It's a view of reality that transforms your everyday life into the script for the most insane sci-fi movie. A movie where you're the main character who doesn't remember playing this role for the billionth time. And the most interesting thing, if we're living in a repeat, then this feeling of cosmic déjà vu, it too must have repeated itself, over and over again. Imagine Paris, 1937. In luxurious salons, the scent of old canvas and big money hangs in the air. A modest Dutch painter, Han van Meegeren, had just presented to the world another miraculously found Vermeer. The painting, Christ and the Adulteress, it was perfect. Critics raved, art historians swore it was a masterpiece. 60 million euros by today's exchange rate. That was the price for this ancient beauty. But you know what's most amazing? It was a fake. 100% brilliant, but a fake. Van Meegeren was so talented that he even used old canvases, natural pigments, a special drying technique. He copied not just the style, but history itself. And yet, experts, decades later, found these barely perceptible glitches, microscopic cracks, too rigid for ancient paint, traces of synthetic resins, tiny, almost invisible anomalies that screamed, "I am not the original." Now imagine our universe. Is it also a copy? Perhaps. And if so, we should expect the same. Not a perfect replica, but a universe with glitches. With small yet incredibly important cracks in the fabric of reality that betray its true origin. Because there are no perfect copies, listen. Never. Even the most talented forger, the most advanced 3D printer, the most powerful copy machine, sooner or later it will produce itdikun, a small imperfection, a barely noticeable detail, a noise in the system. It's precisely these glitches. These are our best clues. You know what I'm talking about? Those oddities that scientists sometimes attribute to lack of data or measurement errors. But what if they're not errors? What if they're signals? Imagine you're making copies of a stack of documents. The first copy, crisp, clear. The 10th, still fine. But by the 100th page, you start seeing slight blurring at the edges, tiny speckles, letters slightly merged in places. It's not a disaster, but it's no longer that exact original. So it is with our universe. If it's a reprint from a previous cycle, then where are these smudges and blurs? Physicists are like, well, actually, we do have something. One of the most famous of these glitches is, of course, the renowned cold spot in the cosmic microwave background. Remember, we talked about the cosmic microwave background? It's like a cosmic sonar, an echo of the Big Bang that permeates the entire universe. It's incredibly uniform, almost perfect, like the perfectly smooth surface of an ocean on a windless day. But in the middle of this smoothness, bang, a massive, inexplicably cold spot, billions of light years across, a cosmic anomaly that shouldn't be there, according to our standard models. Physicists are scratching their heads. How can this be? Some say it's traces of a collision with another parallel universe. Others hypothesize it's a gigantic void where there are no galaxies. Or perhaps, I whisper to you quietly, it's just a scratch on the matrix? A remnant from a previous cycle? Cosmic edge blur? Or consider this, our fundamental constants. The speed of light, the gravitational constant, the fine structure constant. All these numbers that describe our reality. We consider them immutable, eternal, absolute. But what if they're like settings on an old tape recorder, slightly off-kilter when rewound to the next track? There are hypotheses that some of these constants might have been slightly different in the early universe, or might be slightly different in remote regions of space. A difference so subtle, you wouldn't notice it with the naked eye. Like hair color among different members of the same family, seemingly similar, but not identical. Skeptics would immediately scoff, "Nonsense, that's measurement error," or overly bold theories. But listen, when we talk about copies, we're talking about variations, about deviations from the ideal. And it's precisely these deviations, this barely perceptible noise, these artifacts, that might be our only chance to read a message from the universe's past lives. Imagine an old, faded photograph. The faces are recognizable, but the colors have faded, there are scratches, the corners are bent. You know who's in it, but it's not a precise, sharp copy. It's a version. And if our universe is such a faded photograph, then every scratch, every faded color, is a clue. Something that survived after the Big Bang, after the reboot of the entire cosmic system. So the next time you look at the night sky, remember, perhaps you're not just seeing stars. Perhaps you're seeing glitches, imperfections, clues, evidence that our reality is a magnificent yet imperfect copy. An echo, slightly distorted but still recognizable. Imagine this, 476 AD. In majestic Rome, once the center of the world, the last Western Roman emperor, young Romulus Augustulus, abdicates his throne. The gates of the eternal city, it seemed, definitively closed on a 1,000-year history of a mighty empire. Everyone sighs, the end of an era. And what then? A couple of centuries pass, and now the Franks, Goths, Byzantines begin to build their own empires, many of which in essence try to copy the Roman model. The same ambitions, the same conquests, the same intrigues. Even the names are sometimes similar. The Holy Roman Empire, seriously. You know, it's like an old DVD player you try to turn on after a long break. It seems to power on, but the disc is scratched, and every time, in the exact same spot, the picture freezes or the sound distorts. You hope that this time it will skip past. But it's back to the same moment. If we, our civilization, our universe, are merely a copy, playing out someone's or something's script, then the most mind-bending question of all arises. Why? Why this cosmic repetition? Is it an eternal lesson we just can't learn, or simply a meaningless, endless cycle, like a skipping record in the universe's bar? Some, of course, will immediately say, hold on, what's the point? It's just a mechanical consequence of physical laws. There's no why to it. And perhaps they're right. After all, the Big Crunch, followed by the Big Bang, might just be a physical process with no higher purpose. Like a pendulum that swings back and forth, simply because that's how gravity and momentum work. But think of a child who builds a tower of blocks over and over again. They're not just doing it for nothing, right? First it falls. Then they build it a bit higher. Then they add a roof. It's a learning process. Each new tower is an attempt to improve upon the last, to avoid mistakes, to explore new possibilities. What if our universe is like that child? Or perhaps more accurately, something like a cosmic game designer who launches the game again and again, trying to fine-tune the balance, to find the ideal combination of parameters. Imagine that each cycle is a separate run of a complex simulator. Maybe in another cycle, dinosaurs didn't die out from an asteroid, but evolved into highly intelligent beings. And in another, we never invented the wheel, but instead mastered telepathy. Each time, the universe slightly changes the variables, subtly adjusts the dials on its enormous control panel. And our current universe, this one we're living in now, it's one of millions of such attempts. Are we being told something? Are we being given a chance to correct mistakes? Or is it just an endless rehearsal where the curtain never truly falls? Remember how we talked about the informational nature of reality, about a cosmic code or blueprint that the universe uses for its construction? What if this code isn't static? What if it evolves? Like a program that's constantly updated and patched, adding new features or fixing bugs. Each cycle, a new version. And we, its inhabitants, are, in essence, part of a testing environment. On the other hand, there's a less optimistic view. What if there's no grand designer, no lessons? What if it's just a colossal, mindless physical process that by its very nature must repeat itself? Like waves on the ocean that roll onto the shore one after another. There's no meaning in them, no lessons, just endless motion. It's as if you were rewatching the same movie over and over, not because it's a masterpiece, but because the stop button is broken, and you're simply forced to watch it ad infinitum. Sounds eerie, right? If that's the case, then our uniqueness, our free will, all of it comes under heavy scrutiny. If everything has already happened, if every decision you make is simply a reproduction of a decision made by you, or your double, in a previous cycle, then where is your individuality? Where is your choice? Where is your personal story? Perhaps meaning is what we ourselves bring to this game, on repeat. Maybe our task isn't to find it, but to create it. Maybe it's our very awareness of this cycle, this tiny spark of understanding in the depth of endless space, that is the very flaw or update that will ultimately change the rules of the game. Imagine ancient Greece, somewhere in the distant past. Listen, now imagine Sisyphus, a king who managed to deceive death itself, and then the gods too. For that, you know what punishment they came up with for him? Eternal, meaningless repetition. Every day he rolled a huge boulder up a mountain, only for it to roll right back down again. And so it went, endlessly, day after day, century after century. Boulder up, boulder down. Nothing ever changed. Now project that image onto us, onto our civilization, onto our entire universe. We've just walked through the hypothesis that we are not originals, not the first, and perhaps not even the last, that our today is an echo of countless yesterdays. We are a copy, we are a rehearsal, we are part of an endless cosmic play, performed over and over again. And here arises the main question, one that's probably already drilling into your brain like Sisyphus's boulder. So what now? If our fate is predetermined, if everything has already happened, then what's the point of our efforts, our dreams, our revolutions, and even your morning coffee? It's like playing a video game where you already know all the endings, where every choice is just an illusion and the entire plot is predetermined. Deterministic physicists would say, of course, everything is predetermined by the laws of physics. From the Big Bang to the last gasp of a star, everything unfolds according to a strict algorithm, no freedom whatsoever. But then other scientists, the bolder, more audacious ones, would raise an eyebrow. What about quantum uncertainty? What about the butterfly effect? And what if the copy isn't quite perfect? Remember, we talked about imperfect copies? About those very glitches in the fabric of reality that might be our chance? Imagine the universe is a gigantic conveyor belt, churning out the same model of car. 10,000, 100,000, 1,000,000 times. But sometimes, very rarely, due to a speck of dust, a program error, or simply the fatigue of the machine, a small, barely noticeable, but new flaw appears. That flaw, that's our hope. You know, a wise person would say that even if we're rolling Sisyphus's boulder, our choice isn't whether to roll it or not, it's how we do it. With what expression, with what attitude. Or, to put it in purely scientific terms, each new iteration, even if almost identical, gives us a tiny, microscopic, quantum chance. A chance to change one single circumstance, one decision, one thought, one action. It's like updating an operating system. It's seemingly the same, but the bugs are slightly fixed, and perhaps new functionality has appeared. A small update. So what if this knowledge, that we are a copy, isn't a curse, but a gift? What if this is our only chance to break free from the endless loop? Imagine you're watching a movie you've seen 1,000 times. You know every dialogue, every plot twist. But suddenly, this time, you notice a detail you missed before. A small prop, a barely noticeable facial expression from an actor, and that detail suddenly changes your entire perception. It gives you a new perspective. This knowledge, it's a kind of meta-information, the knowledge that you're playing according to an already written script. And here, the whole point isn't to change the script yet, but to realize that you're playing it. Awareness. That's the first step to freedom. It's like waking up within a dream. You start to understand the rules. You see the boundaries. And it's here, precisely here, that the chance for that barely perceptible yet powerful change appears. What if our civilization, once it grasps this truth, can make a choice? Not to repeat the mistakes of past cycles? Not to allow the same catastrophes to happen? It's precisely in this tiny gap between what was and what will be, between copy and original, that our potential is born. The potential to rewrite not the entire play at once, but just one, yet critically important, scene. Your future. It's not simply our past. Your future, it's the opportunity to improve our past. It's a chance that the endless universe gives us, not just to roll the stone, but perhaps one day to hurl it into the abyss, or even learn to fly, or at least change its falling trajectory, so that next time it lands on something soft. This game on repeat. It's not a sentence. It's our textbook, our chance, our challenge. So what will you choose? Will you keep playing by the old notes? Or will you try to add your own melody to this endless symphony of the universe?